Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. What's your homeowners association horror story? Part 3. Our HOA fined us $300 for parking on our own driveway with one warning for a rule they made earlier that year. Also, it might have to do with us being the only non-white family in a neighborhood of mostly crotchety white retirees, but we got written up for effing everything. Every time our trash can is left out one day late, every time we leave Christmas up past the 29th, we get written up. We even got written up for blocking the windows of our garage because we wanted to insulate our garage better. Apparently we can't even keep these effing HOA looky-loos from looking inside our garage? It's a really nice neighborhood, but seriously, what the F? Last year, the HOA VP came over and left a letter on the door. I figured it was about moving my father into the spare bedroom we have without prior notification. He's had some health problems, and we felt it was best to have him near us. But no, it was about our flag. Our American flag. We installed one of those column-mounted flag stands and leave it out every day to honor my dad's army service in Vietnam. Well, the letter said that it was a political device and it was not allowed because there had been some complaints. I went to the next meeting and spoke to the board about it. They initially were receptive, but a couple of weeks later came back with a denial and a retroactive fine of $25 per day that I would have to pay unless I took it down within a week. I was, of course, livid. The bylaws definitely state that you can't have political signs or similar things, but never mentioned American flags. And a lot of people put ornamental flags out at Christmas and Thanksgiving, so why is Old Glory so bad? By this time, I was in a really petty mood about the whole thing, so I decided that I would follow the rules to the letter. I went out and bought 10 more American flags and put them all over the yard. The board went ballistic and I got a visit from 3 of them first thing the next morning. I showed them the letter they had sent me and told them straight up that the flags were coming down in 7 days. But until then, I would do what I felt was necessary. They couldn't do anything about it because it was their own letter that gave me the 7-day grace period for, and I quote, any and all American flags on your property displayed outside of the first week of July. After the week-long grace period went by, we gathered up all the flags and donated them to the local Boy Scouts. We are technically allowed to display one for the 4th of July, but have decided not to go there again. When we moved here, our HOA was run by us, actual homeowners, and was a fairly low-key affair. The pool and tennis courts were available year-round, and we had yearly social gatherings. Then the president resigned to deal with other work/life stuff, and a new HOA group was formed. The current president has added her husband as a consultant to the board. The bylaws say no couples on the board, and the online open forums and exchange of ideas was shut down because complaints were being made against the president, and the current board just keeps re-electing themselves. The pool is closed half the year now, and homeowners are being issued fines and tickets for landscaping issues and tree removal. The husband/consultant drives around the neighborhood spying on homeowners to see if they are cutting tree branches without permission. It got weird fast. Oh boy, where to begin? So, when my family moved into our neighborhood, we had been told by everyone that there was no HOA, except that there actually was one. It didn't seem so bad at first. The fees were reasonable enough and nobody seemed to be acting like a D-nozzle, so my folks shrugged their shoulders and figured we'd deal with it. Not long after this though, things started to go nuts. First, it was blatant favorism for friends of officers. Then, it was a BS management company who literally would do things like send people out with rulers to measure lawn height. Things were quickly turning sour, so my folks, a woman named Kay and a man named P, decided to go up for, and eventually were elected to officer positions to try and wrangle some sense out of the situation. Eventually, they hit upon the idea to dissolve the HOA and started campaigning for votes to that effect. This is where the fun really begins. Kay was president and started receiving effing death threats after she started the campaign to dissolve. Eventually, she resigned and gave the position to my mom. My family had the county we lived in call on us with a phony claim that we kids weren't being sent to school. We were homeschooled a-holes. It forced my family to get all kinds of expensive means of legal defense to make sure charges like that wouldn't stick. P had one of the worst offenders literally barge into P's house and accuse P of embezzlement and demanded for all of the HOA's financial records. There are plenty more stories, but the end result was that we managed to shut that S down. Don't live in HOAs unless you're ready for some serious BS. We lived in a townhouse that had a condo board. We had low condo fees, $100 a month, and for that, they mowed the front lawn, plowed the back lane in the winter, and maintained other common areas. Our backyard was situated in such a way that half of it got sun. The part that got sun was nice, but the part that didn't was a swamp. There wasn't proper drainage, and we had so much moss that it just retained the water. Cutting the one side of the lawn was a pain in the ass, so sometimes I didn't mow it because the mower would be ineffective and get stuck in the moss. One day I come home to a letter from the condo board saying that I wasn't maintaining my lawn properly, that I should cut it and maybe plant some flowers. I was perplexed because I wasn't responsible for the front and I had a few plants out there that didn't look all that bad. I called the person who looks after the condo association and he said he was just responding to a complaint. We talked about the front lawn, and when we realized that I was in compliance, I figured that someone was coming into my backyard. It was fenced off with a gate and complaining about it. I asked the guy if anyone complained about the guy next door who tore his fence down, put paving stones over his backyard, and parked his cars in his backyard. No complaints. Obviously, I peed in someone's cornflakes. So next year, my wife and I decide to pave over our backyard. We did patterned concrete, looked super nice. Our front steps were in rough aesthetic shape, bare concrete, rust from the railing, chipped, etc. We got the guys who did the backyard to put a covering on the front steps to make it look nice. They happily obliged. Money always makes people happy. And we got a nice looking front step. A few days later, we get a letter from the condo board telling us that the front steps were not approved, did not meet the condo standards, and had to be removed. Again, another phone call. No indication as to who complained. There was just a complaint and they acted on it. I went a little ballistic. I told them that I had the best looking steps in the complex, that everyone else were borderline unsafe, never mind unseemly, and that they should spend their time chasing those people down. Then I asked about my neighbors who had painted their steps and were not painted the right color, lighter than mine and the rest of the steps. No complaints. So I politely told them that I wouldn't change my steps, not pay any fines, and in fact, I would be putting my house up for sale because I wasn't going to take their S anymore. What I didn't tell them was that we had decided to move a long time before this. We sold our house above list, and our real estate agent, who knew nothing of this, told us that the buyers loved our steps. We had lived in the neighborhood for about a year and wanted to paint our front door yellow. We have gray-blue siding, white trim. A yellow door would look great. We submitted a request with the paint color to the HOA that was denied a few weeks later. We did some research and resubmitted our request with supporting documentation from HDTV, Fixer Upper, and Better Homes and Gardens, as well as photos of about 20 other homes in the neighborhood with yellow doors. About after 45 days, we still hadn't heard from the HOA, so I checked the CC&R document. Requests that have not been answered within 45 days do not require approval from the HOA, and the homeowner may proceed with the project. That's when the letter started. I had to attend a hearing, which I did. I made my case, and the board said they'd have to check with their lawyer. About a month later, having never heard from the board about their lawyer's input, I got a letter stating I had been fined $100 and would accrue a $25 fine every day the door was not painted a different color, and that any color other than black would need to be approved by the HOA. In the end, we had to go through a process to get the $1,000+ in fines waived, and we had to paint our door a different color. We got the HOA to approve a robin's egg blue, even though the yellow looked 100 times better. Overall, the process took the better part of a calendar year. Fast forward to last week. My Jeep Wrangler is for sale and has been parked on the street in front of my house. The HOA president emailed me asking me to move my Jeep. I'd already checked the HOA rules. The streets belong to the city. And checked with the city, and they said it was fine. My response to the HOA president's email: I'll happily move my Jeep if I can paint my door yellow. Crickets. Not an HOA, but a condo association I was on the board for. Townhouse-style condos with private entrances. We had a problem unit, which was being rented out. The board president wanted to limit guests, so suggested that all overnight guests needed to register. So I asked him how this is going to work. We'll need a process in place. So, say I'm out at the bar and bring someone back. Do I call you at 3 a.m. to get permission since you're the president, or do we set up a schedule? What if I can't get a hold of someone? Is that automatic approval, or am I not allowed to bring them home? Is this even relevant because it's after midnight, and is that overnight? If my friend gets drunk and can't drive, do I kick him out if I can't get a hold of you? He dropped it. My grandfather's story is kinda nuts. Neighbor complained that they could see his pool house over the fence and through the trees. I guess if you stood in the right part and looked closely, she was right. She discovered the pool house was too close to the property line, 8 feet instead of 10. She reported it, and it led to a year-long battle that ultimately resulted in him spending a ton of money to knock down a pool house, tear up the foundation, and build a new one a few feet further away. Keep in mind, they approved the initial plan, and it was there for a decade before she complained. He was peed, decided to screw the neighbor in the process. We had to remove some trees for the demolition/construction. Accidentally removed them all. Oops. Neighbor doesn't have any trees, so now there's nothing to block her view at all. Built the new pool house as tall as we're allowed to, as far from the fence as possible. Added on a second shed. Put big, ugly, duly approved garage doors on it. Left all the stickers on the windows. The old one, you wouldn't notice unless pointed out. The new arrangement is one H of an eyesore. Had contacted my HOA to send all correspondence to my parents as I was deploying. They failed to do this and sent me to collections for missing a payment. We sued thousands of dollars for missing my annual payment of $49. Oh, I got one. Not me, but a client of mine. He owns a rental unit in his HOA and rents to a nice couple in their 20s. They called and said that the AC had died, so he called an HVAC company to come out and fix it, and upon inspection, they decided it needed a full replacement. This is a gated community, so the HOA has to let people in the gate and approve all work being done. Once the new AC unit was picked up, another contractor showed up to install it and was guided to the rooftop units by the HOA guide person, and the work began. Turns out the HOA person pointed out the wrong unit, and when my client went to test the new AC, it still didn't work. My client figured out that the AC was put in the wrong place, but the other unit owner refused to comply with removing it, and the HOA claimed that they were not to blame, even though their guy screwed up the 2 units. My client had to buy another unit and use a different HOA-appointed contractor because they banned the other contractors from the property. The best part of the whole ordeal was they sent him a written warning about his conduct with the HOA after he let them have it in the main office. If you want to watch the part 2, click the link here. Thank you for watching. Guys, thank you for all the support and the likes. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. See you next time.